I sat down this morning to record this episode. That was the plan, but first I had to switch over the laundry, and then I remembered a few emails I hadn't responded to, and then suddenly it felt very important to clean out the junk drawer. Does that sound familiar? It's easy to call it procrastination or avoidance or just being lazy, but over the years I've learned to look at these moments differently. And today I want to talk about what might be really going on when you feel stuck like that and what to do about it. Welcome to the Building Resilience Podcast, episode 237. You're not lazy, you're in survival mode. Welcome to Building Resilience, a podcast where theory, practical strategies, and inspiring stories show you how to unlock your best life. I'm your host, Leah Davidson. As a certified life coach, speech-language pathologist, and nervous system resilience expert, it is my mission to teach you how to be more resilient to life's adversities. I will show you how to manage your mind, befriend your nervous system, process your emotions, and even eliminate stress. It's time to do more than just survive. It's time to thrive. Let's get started. How are you doing? Welcome to the podcast. How's your nervous system doing? I just want to stop here and remind you to always be doing quick little check-ins with your nervous system. I love to do my safety sequence throughout the day, asking, am I safe? Do I feel safe? Relaxing my body. So stop what you're doing and just do that now. And if you want to go deeper and you want to learn more about the safety sequence, I did create a whole video walking you through the safety sequence in detail that I recommend you go check out. And of course, if you're also looking at learning more about your nervous system and how to befriend it and how to work with it, I have a couple of really easy access ways. Now, first is my resilience journal. The link will be in the show notes, but it is available on Amazon. It's under the brand Resilient Brilliance. Or you can join me in the Nervous System Journaling Club. The club is an amazing community. We journal, we doodle, we learn about the nervous system, and then there's all sorts of extra bonuses. In fact, if you are an annual member of the club right now, you're getting free access to a 4-part virtual breathwork retreat. Now, we already had one session. We're getting started, but there's more lives to come. Replays are available, so you can watch it over and over again. You can purchase this virtual breathwork retreat separately, or you can get it for free if you are an annual member of the Nervous System Journaling Club. So those are some options for us to work together. Okay, so today I'm basing this episode off another email that somebody sent me, and I'm going to paraphrase this one. So they essentially wrote that they felt like a ghost in their own business. They had ideas, they know what they should be doing, but every time they sat down to do something, they would talk themselves out of it, or there would be another distraction. And now they kept on telling themselves, no, they're being intentional, they're supporting their nervous system, but then they started to wonder, well, maybe this isn't true. Maybe I am stuck and I'm paralyzed and scared. So when I read that, I could really relate to it. Now, I've always been self-employed, but especially in the past few years, I have felt it. And I've seen others feel it in other areas of their life too. So maybe you have felt this stuckness is what we call it. And people often talk about how do you get unstuck? Well, here's what I want to say about it. When you find yourself stuck, hiding, avoiding, overthinking, or even hyper focusing on things that don't really move the needle, your nervous system isn't being lazy. It's often being protective. It's saying to you, I don't feel safe to be seen. I don't feel safe to take up space. I don't feel safe to be big right now. And maybe, just maybe, it's right. Now, let's name something else that is often hiding behind that fear. Because sometimes the fear we feel isn't even obvious. It doesn't always show up as like clear panic or anxiety. Sometimes fear can show up as, I'll do that later, or I need to learn more first. So sometimes the fear of being seen, sometimes it's the fear of failure, sometimes it's the fear of success. And behind so much of that fear is often shame. Now, shame is pretty tricky because shame is pretty quiet, pretty hidden. usually doesn't scream. It's usually whispering. It's telling you things like, you're not ready. You're not smart enough. If you try, you'll make a fool of yourself. You'll be rejected. Who do you think you are? So shame tries to convince us that it's protecting us. But what it's actually doing is just keeping us small. It says, I'm keeping you safe, but it's really telling you to stay invisible, to play small. Don't take those risks. Don't create. Don't speak. Don't grow. And shame thrives in darkness. It thrives when we don't name it, when we don't challenge it, when we let it call the shots without even realizing it's there. So let's go back and talk about the role of the nervous system again. And I want you to think of it using another analogy. Think of it like your well meaning, slightly neurotic roommate. Now, this one roommate has one job: to keep you alive, not to keep you happy or successful or fulfilled. The only role is to keep you alive. And this roommate is really, really good at its job. It's been doing this job for thousands of years and it takes that responsibility seriously. So when this roommate senses threat, whether there's actual danger or just the possibility of rejection or failure or being judged, it starts to make some executive decisions about your life. Oh, you want to post that vulnerable thing on social media? Well, what if people think you're weird? Let's not do it. Or how about we clean out that email inbox instead? If you're starting a new creative project, may I ask, well, what if it's terrible? What if you're not as talented as you think? You know what sounds safer? Researching. Let's research for 6 months. Or maybe you want to have a difficult conversation with your partner and this roommate is like, oh, it's kind of scary. What if they get upset? What if things change? Let's just not. Let's go binge watch something instead. So your nervous system isn't deliberately trying to sabotage you. It's actually trying to save you and protect you. But its definition of safe is really, really narrow and small. And then if we come back to shame, shame is a way to keep you narrow and small too. It teams up with fear to convince you that staying small is the right move. And it can often mask itself as logic or caution, but it's actually self-protection dressed up as procrastination. Now, I've shared before that I've spent the last 26 years as a speech language pathologist working with people who had traumatic brain injuries. And I often had people say to me, oh my gosh, that must be such a rewarding career. And I understand why people say that because you are helping people and parts of it are very rewarding. But what people don't see is kind of the weight that you end up carrying home every day because the stories and the struggles and the slow progress that sometimes feels like no progress at all. And for years, I thought the solution was to just be more resilient, more positive, more grateful for the meaningful work that I have. But compassion fatigue isn't something that you can just mindset or think your way out of it. Your nervous system absorbs all of that heaviness, whether you want it to or not. And then, of course, for me, there was raising 5 kids, being a stepmom, trying to blend a family. You're expected to love unconditionally while being constantly watched and critiqued. And you're supposed to do all the emotional labor, but somehow not overstep. So it's this impossible dance where you're always a little bit wrong no matter what you do. And then I've been building a coaching business focused on nervous system work. And of course, even though I love the nervous system, I love teaching about it, I'm so passionate about it, I also have a nervous system, which means I get dysregulated. Now, knowing about your nervous system and knowing about nervous system regulation doesn't exempt you from having a nervous system as a human. I can teach you all day about vagal tone and the zone of resilience, but I still get triggered. I still freeze up. I still have days where I organize my spice rack instead of doing the thing that I know I should do. And then there's this extra layer of pressure. I'm supposed to be an example. I'm supposed to have it all figured out. When I'm struggling, there is this voice that says in me, how can you be helping other people with this if you can't even do it yourself? So there it is again, shame. So it's not just fear that I'll fail, but it's also shame that I'll be seen struggling with it, that people will find out that, oh no, I don't have it all together. And then what? I'll be exposed, rejected. Well, that's shame talking. So, what this person who emailed me was describing is actually completely normal. We often hit some brick walls with our nervous system as we move throughout life. Now, let's look at some examples of how our nervous systems can be impacted in real life in this way. So, for example, I kind of gave you a little bit of a hint, like a coach who talks herself out of something or out of everything. So, this is like this person who reached out to me. She has the knowledge, she has the clients who trust her, but every time she tries to grow her business, her brain starts the sabotage loop. What if this content is not good? What if nobody cares? What if I'm really not as good as I think? So, that imposter syndrome, which we talked about a couple episodes ago. So, she may then decide, I'm not going to write the newsletter or the email. I'm going to stop making videos and just busies herself doing comfortable hobbies instead. Or maybe you're the student who can't really start. You're brilliant. You know the material, but when it comes to writing a paper or starting that big project, you freeze. And maybe you'll research for weeks and you'll outline endlessly and reorganize your notes 17 different times. Anything except actually beginning. And meanwhile, that deadline gets closer and closer, the shame gets bigger and bigger. And you may tell yourself that, oh, I do work better under pressure, but their nervous system is actually protecting them from the possibility of producing something imperfect. Or maybe you're a young parent who has lost yourself in the process. You love your kids fiercely, but somewhere between all those sleepless nights, you feel like you've disappeared. You used to have hobbies and dreams and opinions, and now all those opinions are about what snacks to pack. And you may end up just scrolling your phone during nap time instead of doing anything that feels meaningful because meaningful just feels too big, too risky when you're already running on empty. Another example is that corporate executive who's burnt out. And from the outside, maybe it looks like you have it all. You got the title, the salary, the respect, but inside, feel like you're just going through the motions. Maybe you show up meetings, you're hitting your numbers, you're managing your team, but there's no joy left. So maybe you'll end up fantasizing about doing something different, but you can't ever imagine starting over. So it feels really heavy, and your nervous system just says, stay safe, stay comfortable, even though comfortable is kind of eating at your soul. A helper who can't help themselves. These are the people in caregiving professions: doctors, nurses, therapists, teachers, social workers, police officers. They pour everything into other people all day long, and then they come home completely depleted. They know all the right advice, but they can't seem to apply it in their lives. Well, their nervous system is maxed out on other people's pain. Or maybe you're the empty nester who really kind of feels lost. For decades, your identity was wrapped up in taking care of everybody else: soccer practice and school events and family dinners and managing everybody else's schedule. And then all of a sudden, the house is quiet. They don't need you anymore in the same way. And you end up feeling like you don't even know who you are anymore. And you may even end up feeling guilty for wanting something for yourself after all these years. So, if any of these scenarios sound familiar, this isn't a personal failure. This is what happens when your nervous system has been running in overdrive for years. Now, what do we do with this information? How do we honor the wisdom that our nervous system is offering us while not staying stuck forever? Well, the first thing you want to do is you want to stop making it mean something bad about you. Because the story you're telling yourself about why you're stuck is probably amplifying everything and making it all worse. This idea of I'm lazy, or I have no willpower, I'm not cut out for this, I'm letting everybody down. Well, what if you tried instead, like, my system is protecting me right now? Something feels unsafe. I'm getting information about what that could be. Because when you approach your stuckness with curiosity instead of criticism, your nervous system can actually start to relax. When you criticize yourself, it amps up your nervous system. And when you offer curiosity, it helps calm you down. So then your nervous system doesn't have to defend against your own judgment on top of everything else. The second thing you can do is you can get really specific about the fear. So, one of the things I like to ask my clients, or even ask myself or my kids when they're feeling stuck, is, well, what's the worst thing that could happen if you did the thing you're avoiding? And not the practical worst thing, but the emotional worst thing we're going to talk about. And usually it comes down to one of these: that people will see that I'm not as smart or talented or together as they think. I'll fail and prove that I'm a fraud. There's that imposter syndrome again, who doesn't deserve to maybe charge for my time or this work. Or there's even I'll succeed and then I have to keep living up to these unrealistic expectations. Or I'll outgrow the life that I've built and lose people who love me as I am now. And maybe I'll have to admit that all those years of putting everybody else first were partly my choice. So, that person who emailed me, her real fear might not have been about making videos or writing blog posts. It was more about having to confront different thoughts. Maybe it was thoughts, money thoughts, belief about worth and success that she'd been carrying around probably for years. It could be about risking disappointments again after being disappointed so many other times. And these fears aren't irrational. They're very much pointed to something real. Maybe you are in a growth phase and some relationships may change. Maybe you are discovering new parts of yourself. Maybe success would require you to step into a version of yourself that you're not sure you're ready for. But once you name the actual fear, you can start to work with it instead of just being paralyzed by it. Now, thirdly, we want to do regulation before action, always. Number 3 is where most of us get it wrong and where most advice gets it wrong. We usually hear you just got to push through. You just got to do it anyway. You just got to use willpower to override your system. But if your nervous system doesn't feel safe, it's going to keep putting on the brakes no matter how hard you try to hit the gas. And you're going to end up exhausted and stuck and spinning. So instead, you want to regulate first. We're going to come back to that safety sequence. Am I safe? Check the environment. Yes, I know I am safe in this moment, in the present moment. Do I feel safe? No, my body's probably having some reaction. Get into your body. Is there stress? Is there tension? Is there pain? And then acutely relax your body in some way. Maybe it is going to be just doing the ragdoll. Maybe it is going to be doing a slow exhale. Maybe it's going to be unclenching your butt cheeks and just completely relaxing your pelvis area. We want to be doing this safety sequence. We want to be able to teach our body what it feels like to be safe. The fourth thing we can do is just start super small. Sometimes we get stuck because we're thinking too big picture and we start thinking of all the steps that we need to take to get to where we want to go. But often it's the smallest step in the right direction that just makes the difference. So little steps give us proof that we can do it, proof that we have what it takes, that we can show up. So asking yourself, what is the smallest possible version of the thing that you're avoiding? So if you want to start a business, maybe you're going to research one competitor. If you want to have a difficult conversation, maybe you're going to write one text. If you want to create something, maybe you're going to start with a tiny thing. If you want to put yourself out there, maybe you're just going to share one truth. The goal for this step isn't actually progress. The goal is to actually prove to your nervous system that you can take action and survive it. Now, the fifth thing you can do is you can find your people, even when you don't want to. And this part really makes a big difference, and we don't often talk about it. When we're stuck, we do tend to isolate. We don't want people to see us struggling. We don't want to admit that we're not okay. But isolation makes everything worse because our nervous system is wired for connection. And when we're alone with our fears, they get bigger. And I've also learned that people who knew you in a role as a caregiver or a professional or a person who has it all together, they might not be the right people to witness a transformation or a version of you. You need people who can see you in your becoming and not just your being. People who won't try to talk you out of your feelings or rush you through your process. People who understand that sometimes growth does look like falling apart before you can pull yourself back together. Now, for me, it meant finding people, other entrepreneurs or other women on a quest to befriend their nervous system, or just other people who are brave enough to try new things or admit that they didn't have it all figured out. You need people who can remind you of who you are when you forget, people who won't judge you for taking time to figure things out. And something else that might surprise you, but it's important to consider, it could be that sometimes the thing you're avoiding isn't actually the thing you should be doing. Sometimes the stuckness is information that you're trying to force yourself down a path that just isn't right for you. Sometimes your intuition is saying, wait, this isn't it. There's something else. Or sometimes the stuckness is just your nervous system saying, this matters too much to mess up, so I'm going to make it really hard for you to do it. So the person who emailed me about her business, I don't necessarily think that her nervous system was telling her to quit her business. I think that maybe it was telling her that she cares so much about doing it right, about being worthy of charging for her expertise, and about not being another failed entrepreneur, that it has created like this fortress around her to protect her from potential disappointment. She had said that her existing clients kept renewing because she was good at what she did. So her nervous system wasn't questioning her ability, it's questioning whether she can handle the vulnerability that comes with putting herself out there at scale. So as you're working with your stuckness, I want you to stay open to the possibility that stuckness might also be redirecting you and not just slowing you down. So if you take nothing else from this conversation, I want you to remember your stuckness is not evidence that you're broken. It's just evidence that you're human. Every person who has built anything meaningful in their life has periods where they pull back and reassess and realign and recalibrate. And the difference is that some of us have nervous systems that have been through more or carried more or absorbed more pain and taken more responsibility over the years. And we need more time to feel safe taking risks. But you don't have to earn the right to take up space. If you've spent years putting everybody else's needs first, your nervous system might not believe that you're allowed to want things for yourself. But you are allowed. You always were. Your dreams and goals and desires aren't selfish. They're part of what makes you human. And small, consistent actions really are much better than big, sporadic efforts every time. You don't need to have a breakthrough moment or a transformation overnight. You need to take one small step, then another, and trust the process, even when you can't see the whole staircase that you're climbing. And this is especially true if you're building a business around something as vulnerable as helping other people. Trust has to be built slowly within yourself first. And your pace is your pace. We do live in this culture that celebrates speed and hustle and constant growth, but sustainable change happens at the speed of safety. So honor your nervous system's wisdom, even when it's inconvenient. So, what is your next right step? First, it's always to regulate. Do the safety sequence, or simply take a pause, a breath, and regulate. Next, ask yourself, what is one small thing I can do today that would feel like I'm moving the needle forward? Not a big thing, not the thing that you should do, the thing that actually feels possible right now. So maybe it's sending an email, maybe it's writing in your journal for 5 minutes, maybe it's creating a small doodle, or just admitting to somebody that you've been struggling. Whatever it is, just do that. And then tomorrow, ask the same questions. This is how we build trust in ourselves. This is how we create safety for growth. This is how we stop fighting our nervous system and start working with it. Now, the process of befriending your nervous system is sometimes messy and nonlinear and can even feel like you're going backwards. But it's not a punishment, it is preparation. Your nervous system needs to create capacity and space for you to become somebody who can handle your own dreams, your own visibility, your own success. And for many of us trying to move ahead, work on our goals, your nervous system isn't wrong to be protective. It just wants to make sure that you're really ready to put yourself out there in this big way. But being ready doesn't mean being fearless. It means being willing to feel the fear, to show up anyway in a regulated state, one small step at a time. Now, I'm not saying to minimize if you're going through feeling stuck right now, because it can be really lonely and frustrating and even scary. But I want you to consider the possibility that this is not the end of a story. It's like the setup for the next chapter you're about to write. Your nervous system is probably smarter than you think. Your stuckness actually has wisdom and intelligence, and you are always way more resilient than you know. So trust the process, trust your own pace, trust yourself. And I hope you found this helpful. and I'll see you next time. Thank you for listening to the Building Resilience podcast. If you're interested in learning a little bit more about managing stress, building resilience, and leading a more purposeful life, then make sure we're connected on Instagram and Facebook at Leah Davidson Life Coaching. You can also subscribe to my weekly newsletter at www.leahdavidsonlifecoaching.com/newsletter. Looking forward to connecting.